Hey everybody, it's Carrie again. Another Missions Journal entry. It is November 17th, I believe. I'm not that great at dates, but November 17th to the best of my knowledge. I have had somebody point out that I haven't really talked about what my ministry does or what I'm planning to do when I go over to Africa, so I will talk a little bit about that with you today. My heart, and I believe what God's been leading me to do is, in general, a ministry of reconciliation and redemption. I went through some very hard things in my life. One of them was a rape that really messed me up in college. Someone broke into my apartment in the middle of the night and attacked me, and I thought I handled it right. I did everything I knew to do, but I still slipped into depression and anxiety, severe depression and anxiety. I was taking medication to try to cope in life. I was seeing very vivid dreams that were full of confusion and made me believe that I was going insane. These things, I would see things that were just regular conversations that I would have in regular life, and I would have to ask my friends, because they were so real to me, I would have to ask my friends whether we had spoken about those things or not. And oftentimes it was a dream that I had seen and not the actual person that I was talking to. That is tied right in with anxiety, and depression and anxiety are typically linked with a lot of people. At least that's what I was told, because the anxiety takes so much out of you that all of a sudden you're completely drained and you're depressed. Well, God helped me deal with all of what I was going through. And it took a lot of forgiveness. It took through praying through a lot of things and finding scriptural basis for promises of what God said about me to rebuild myself and to be reconciled, to be redeemed. In a quite literal sense, it took that, and I had to pray through forgiveness quite a bit. There were a lot of people who I had thought my whole life that I had been forgiving people, and there was still pain attached to so much that was in my life. Pain attached to memories that I had no control over, things that happened to me. And you look at that and you say, well, that's normal. That's how a normal person deals with it. You forgive, but you're not necessarily going to lose the memories. No, you're not going to lose the memories, but God has made a way through Jesus Christ that we can, when we really do learn to forgive the person that hurt us, we release them. We don't have to stand in judgment over them anymore, which is a place where we shouldn't be in the first place. We take ourselves back from the situation and we give it to Jesus Christ. And the thing is, Jesus will either eventually judge the person, after death, or that person will find Christ and be forgiven. Which, if we're going to be forgiven our trespasses, we have to forgive other people their trespasses. And We're not to wish harm on anybody. We're not to wish ill on anybody. And it's not our job to make sure that that person learns their lesson. There is a drive for justice inside of each one of us, and that can hinder the situation where we feel like, but they have to learn a lesson from what they did. They have to learn that that's wrong. Yes, that is indignation, and absolutely they should learn that what they did is wrong and what happened to you was not right. But we have the power within ourselves to forgive, and that allows God to come in and heal that part of us that's been bound by the situation. If you think back into the past and there is pain over some type of ill treatment, whether you think you have forgiven that person or not, you have not fully forgiven them. There's a part of you that's still holding to that, that's still being justified by what you believe that situation did, which, yes, situations mess us up. But we have the power to get past that because God has made a way for us to do that. We give that part to God, and we pray, and we tell God that we've forgiven that person. We tell God that we want Him to take on the burden of it. We don't want to have the burden of that anymore. And we continue to do this time after time that memory comes back until all of the sudden, miraculously, there is no pain attached to that anymore. And I've gone through that with many of my memories. There are family things that have happened, even minor family things that have happened that I had been holding on to throughout the years in bitterness, and I didn't even realize I was. But the more that you give over to God, the more He will reveal to you, because he who is faithful with little will be made faithful over much. God takes those little parts where we're giving it to Him and saying, I will be faithful with this, and then He dumps more out onto us. He gives us more grace. He gives us more mercy. He shows us more areas where we can be healed, and it's not always an easy process. We are called warriors for a reason, because we have to face each day with courage, and we have to face each day with a drive to overcome what comes against us. But God's given us the tools and the ability to be able to overcome, and that's something that we wouldn't have without Him. So now that I've talked a little bit about what's happened to me, and I'm sure I'll go more into it in the future with different things, I want to go to Africa, and I've had a lot of leadership training in the past. I will be training up Christian leaders who serve in small congregations out in Africa, throughout several areas of Africa. There is a leadership conference, a couple at least, that I will be teaching at, not the only speaker as far as I know, but alongside other leadership individuals. I've had a lot of leadership training, and I have trained leaders here as well, both in the private sector and in the Christian community. And I am hoping to be able to do that quite a bit. God has told me to open up a Widows and Orphans Fund. I don't have a Widows and Orphans Fund yet, but I have the bank account ready to be a Widows and Orphans Fund once we have the funds to fill it. That will be used to help educate children who don't have any means of being educated. There's a school system out there, but you still have to pay to go to school. You still have to pay for the resources and the books. Girls can't go to school without certain toiletries that women need every single month from a certain age on. And we want to be able to provide those types of things, provide training to make their own so that they can be reused. There are ways to boil and reuse things like that. I want to be able to eventually provide food for communities, provide industrial training, be able to put resources together, which is something that I've been good at in the past. When I see a need, reaching out and finding people who can fill that need and coordinating them together is something that I tend to be very good at. So I want to go and evaluate the needs. I have several pastors that want me to come share with their congregations and help train their leaders. A lot of orphanages that I'm working with, and I'll be doing even little things like face painting and games with the kids and VBS programs, putting together plays and music to share with people. One of the pastors that I was speaking with recently, and this breaks my heart, one of the pastors I was speaking with recently has a huge vision to reach people around him. But because of resources, he doesn't even have a way to be encouraged from outside of himself. He has the Bible, he can read the Bible, and he digs in. You better believe he digs in. But the Bible tells us that the spirit of oppression is lifted when we praise. And he has no praise resources. Just to be able to provide, simple ways to praise, whether it's being able to bring in instruments that they weren't able to have in the past, whether it's the ability just to provide, a program of simple praise that people could learn and praise together. I can't say that I have all of the ideas completely thought out yet, but I tend to think very well in the moment. And when I am there and when I see what the needs are and what the resources are that are limiting them, I will look at what can be done with what they have and be able to help improvise solutions. No one should be in a place where they are unable to get resources for building their Christian walk and for building those around them. There is so much passion throughout Africa, and I'm not saying that nobody has anything, but I am saying in many rural areas it is hard to get your hands on resources that you need. There are people whose mother tongue is Swahili or Kiswahili or some other type of dialect there. English is one of the main, English and Swahili are the two main languages in Africa, but oftentimes in the rural areas, Swahili is studied much more than English, and the kids might grow up not having a full understanding of the English language, so to place an English Bible in their hands, it's wonderful to have the Bible, but if you can't understand it, what good does that do you? That's like if we got a Latin Bible, or, I love my keyword study Bible because it interprets keywords for me, but if I had a Bible written in Hebrew and Aramaic, I couldn't understand it. The power is still in the scripture, but I couldn't understand it, and I want people to be able to have resources to be able to grow in God. So a lot of it will be being on the ground, figuring out what's there, and trying to bring in other resources, but I want to especially focus on education, Christian education, and trying to work with women especially who have gone through difficult things in life and need to rebuild themselves. Also doing the leadership training. Those are different things. I really do believe that years down the road, we will be able to help fund schools, help with scholarship programs for children who cannot afford to go to school on their own, whose families or orphanages cannot afford to send them, because I believe that every child deserves an education. And to be able to provide that, I think is very important. To help the widows who don't have husbands to help support them. These are things that are at the very heart of God. It says religion in its truest form is to help widows and orphans in their distress and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. Those are the three things that we're focusing on. Helping orphans and widows in their distress, and a call to holiness, to keep ourselves from being polluted by the world. And as I go on, and as I begin working more, I'll be able to share more on more clarity on that vision as I go along. And I hope that you guys will travel with me through that. Thank you so much for being here, and you guys have a wonderful day.